Riana.
Hi, Riana.
I know most of you, except for the ladies in the back. I'm a grateful recovered addict and alcoholic. I've been sober since August 14th of 2015. I forget my sobriety date, but you know whose I don't forget is Carl's 7716. I just don't have to say it very often. I think I wanted to start out by talking about something, because before I get into like funny stories or anything, especially for women, if you've never been to a meeting, I think it's important, because I wish this would have been shared with me at my first meeting. The first time I went to a 12-step meeting, I was 17, and it just wasn't freely shared what it means to be an alcoholic. To have the disease of alcoholism and addiction, you have to have the spiritual malady, the mental obsession, and the physical craving, right? So the spiritual malady is something that shows up for most of us as kids. Maybe we feel like we don't fit in. We just don't feel like we can relate to people. We just don't feel good enough, or we feel like we're better than everyone else, or just not good enough for this, or just not good enough for that. Maybe we think we're a little smarter, but we're not too smart. If that makes any sense, we just feel like we don't fit, right? That's a breakdown of the spiritual malady, that emptiness inside. And then the physical craving that comes in when you put something into your body, whatever the flavor is, and how you react physically different. That, some people can take it or leave it, but if I put something in my body that changes how I feel, I want more and more and more and more. And ultimately, it will become the most important thing in my life, whatever that substance is, and no matter who I love or I don't love. And the mental obsession is when I don't have that substance, when I'm dry and sober, right? If I don't have a spiritual connection, it's all I think about. It's all I think about is how I can get away with it, what I can do differently to make it, to allow myself to successfully use, right? I just think that's important, because regardless of the stories, I didn't become an addict the first time I was arrested, It was way before then. I didn't become an addict when I told a doctor that I was an addict. It was way before then. And I think that to qualify to be in here, the stories are just kind of relatable if you can relate to them, but that doesn't make you qualify to be in here. And I think that's really important to know, that your story doesn't have to look like mine. And if you have those 3 characteristics, then you're in the right place. If when you put something into your body, you want more and more and more, and maybe you've embarrassed yourself, maybe you have, anyway, so now I'm going to get started. And also what it means to be recovered is that mental obsession. So we treat the spiritual malady with the 12 steps, and that mental obsession is gone today. And the physical craving doesn't come on as long as I don't put anything into my body. So but that's, how a lot of people, how I stay sober is, God takes care of that. I don't want to get high, that's how I stay sober. I don't have to fight anything all day, every day. God takes care of that. I have to try to not say the F-bomb with kids behind me, and I'm going to work really hard to do that. I was the youngest of 3 girls, a military family. My dad was alcoholic, but that didn't show up until I was adolescent age. It was really perfect timing for me. You add in the natural misfit feeling of someone who is probably one of us, and then adolescence comes on, and, it just gets worse. And I should have wondered, when DARE was around in elementary school and they would bring those speakers, I wasn't one of those weirdos who was like trying to steal the drugs or anything. I wasn't, but when people would tell these crazy stories, I never was like, whoa, that's horrible. I thought, holy crap, that's such an interesting life, man. And look at them now. They're here. I just didn't react to it the same way. And then, I probably started drinking and using drugs. I don't remember the first time, but I was 12 or 13. I was really young. But I remember the first time I smoked pot, I was like, holy crap, I'm not dead. I'm still alive. So really, all of that is not true, You can drugs don't kill you. And then I remember the first time I drank, and it was like, all of these feelings of, because I was in a gifted class as a kid, but come to find out my IQ wasn't high enough to be in the gifted class, so I didn't even fit in with the weirdos. And then I go to the regular classes and I'm just extra weird. And I think, I don't know, maybe it's for all alcoholics and addicts. The voice inside of my head was so loud. And I can remember even as a kid, it was so loud. It would be overpowering, not in a psychotic way, but just constantly thinking about any interaction in front of me. So when I found something that would turn that volume down, I was like, this is where it's at. So I started drinking really young and experimenting with all kinds of drugs. And like I said, I think like most people, from an early, whether you started using young or old, you know pretty early on that something's a little different. I remember my freshman year, I don't know what's appropriate with these kids, but okay, so I remember when I was a freshman in high school, and I had this friend in my first period class, and we would meet up and we would tell each other all the crazy stuff we did the weekend before, and we were like 14 or 15 years old, and that's when I realized that like some drugs you just don't talk about, they're not cool. Crack is never cool. No one ever wants to talk about crack. They don't want to hear about it. I learned you can do it, but you don't tell anybody you did it, unless they're doing it with you. So throughout high school, substances were just a large and growing part of my identity. School was easy for me though. Just the legal and social issues that I was constantly coming up against, just all around substances all the time. Smoking as a kid, drinking as a kid, getting caught with pot. And my story is probably like some people's. I had a stable home overall. My dad was alcoholic, so it was chaotic, but it was still stable. He went to work every day. My mom went to work every day. My parents loved me. I wasn't starved or beaten, thank God. But that's that part that's what I think is important to focus on, is you don't have to have all these crazy stories to still belong right here, no matter how old you are too. Because I remember one of the earliest meetings I went into after being really strung out for a long time, and I went to the meeting and I said, I don't even think I was sober, but I said I was 30 days sober, and they said, how'd you do it? I said, the state of Texas, and this lady ripped me up and down about it, and I guess it's because I looked young, and I don't hold resentment, it's just different strokes, different folks, but I don't want anyone to feel like that here. I don't care how old you are, you still belong in this room. I probably belonged in this room, I definitely belonged in this room when I was smoking crack at 15, but anyways, the point is, so using and drinking escalated through high school. I went to college for a little bit. I did not stay long. And the first time, because slowly what happens is that your whole life begins to revolve around substances. But it happened for me pretty slowly, because I had friends who did drugs recreationally, but then I found my favorite drug, and I sought out people who liked the same things as me, naturally. If you like pool, you like to play with, hang out with people who play pool. You like drugs, you hang out with people who like drugs. But I think when I was 17 or 18 is when it became a daily problem, when the physical addiction actually happened. And I was so surprised. And I remember I detoxed myself for the first time when I was 19 in my apartment. And, you go through this flu sickness and you're like, what the heck? But here's the addict part of it, right? After the week goes by and you start to feel normal, maybe you're day 7 or 8, and you're like, well, I've been clean for 7 days. Surely, why not? It's the weekend. And that's what makes addicts and alcoholics different than a recreational drug user, is that we feel the negative effects. Maybe there's pressures coming around us socially, but that voice in our head is like, this time it's going to be different. No, you can have it all. You can have a functional life and get high. For me, that is not the case. I can have one or the other. I can have a functional life, a healthy home life, peace in my life, or I can do drugs. I can't have both, And drugs ultimately will become everything for me. The sun, the moon, everything. And anyways, that's what inevitably happened. And I feel like I remember the first time I got arrested, I was so surprised. Like, how in the world could you put handcuffs on me? Do you know me? I'm very nice. You don't have to do this. And it was crazy until the last time I got arrested where it was serious, not just a KPS pro fine or failure to appear. Because, I'll never understand how people can turn themselves in. All the power to you, man. Never in my life you're going to have to come and get me. I'm not going to come in my white shirt and my socks and never, no ma'am. You will have to come find me. But I was thinking about it today, the last time I got arrested, and I was really sick. I was maybe 90 pounds soaking wet, but I was waiting in the holding cell, and they told me that I had a visitor, and anyways, I didn't even know you could get visitors in holding, but I got a lovely visit from my partner at the time, just telling me how horrible he thought that I was, and I was like, thanks for coming down here to tell me that. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. There's a glass between. I can't do anything. Anyways, he bailed me out a couple days later. Point is, I remember in holding, I was sitting next to this woman, and she had just been busted for a large amount of drugs. And we were both using the same drugs, so we were both sick. And she was a lot older, and she had this huge sore on her arm, right? And I thought I was bad because I had abscesses everywhere. It's just the effects of intravenous drug use. But I'm looking at this woman who's quite a bit older and dealing with, a huge staph infection. They're giving her pain medication in jail, which is unheard of. But anyways, and we're talking because, and she's saying, it's like we were both telling each other, things are going to be better. We're going to change things. But it's like you knew in the moment that it wasn't going to change. That obsession was in full force. I had one plan when I got out, and that was it. And I could feel the same thing was there for her. There was no genuine desire. There was a desire to be out of jail. That was really it. Anyways, so I ended up going to treatment after my last arrest, thank God, last arrest. And my parents helped me because they said they would help me if I went to treatment. I'm really blessed to have a good family. But I got out of treatment. I spent 30 days in treatment. I didn't absorb a single thing because in my mind, I just needed to get off of it. Once I got that needle out of my life, I was going to be fine. That's all. Even though things had escalated for the past 6 years to such a state that you not only, when you're an addict, it's like we have so much to change, and that's what the 12 steps are for. Because sure, I was a drug addict, but I was also a shoplifter. I also didn't know how to pay for a single thing I wanted. I also just had no moral compass anymore. Everything was so different. And we get to a place where, we don't get along with normal society, and that's because we aren't like normal society. Normal society uses their paychecks to buy things, not drugs, They don't use their paycheck for drugs and then take whatever else they need for free. Anyways, I got out of treatment, and like I said, the obsession was in full force. Nothing had changed at all. I just had this book of knowledge, and I remember this one peer counselor saying, Riana, you're really smart. You're really smart. I'm like, you're dang right, I'm smart. She's like, maybe you need to try EMDR. And I'm like, anyways, I had done all kinds of therapy before this, but I'm like, you're right, I need EMDR. I don't need this crap. I just need to get some EMDR. Nothing against EMDR. I think it's great for trauma. Anyways, so I got out of treatment. I stayed sober for 3 days. I moved in with my sister, and it was supposed to be a sober place, and there was this, this guy had just gotten out of prison. I had just gotten out of treatment. It seemed really perfect for both of us. And he had just cut off his finger, so he had a lot of drugs. It was a work-related accident from his sobriety. Anyways, I hate to underwhelm you. That didn't last very long, but it was a beautiful moment. Anyways, so I didn't stay sober, and here comes looming consequences from my last arrest, and they weren't going anywhere. Meanwhile, I am not facing anything. If I show up to any of the meetings, I just went to random meetings, and I really wasn't ready to receive it until it got to where I signed for probation, which is basically where, if you haven't been on probation, the whole point of probation is to keep you sober. That's it. If you're a drug or an alcohol offender, that is literally their whole purpose. And you know that when you're going into it. So I signed my soul away to the state of Texas. And I had, my boyfriend at the time, he said, Riana, you should have just taken the jail time. You should have just taken the time. I'm like, what? Who the heck would say that? He's like, you can't do probation. You just need to go to prison. I'm like, that's a horrible idea. How long would I last in prison, sir? Not long. So I signed for probation, and I was barely making it. I had just gotten a job where I still work, and I remember I worked right across from Pinky's, and I had started drinking daily because I wasn't using drugs, but I am a full addict alcoholic. If it makes me feel good and I can maintain it throughout the day, then I'm going to do it every day. Why would I not do it every day? Why would I just do it on Saturdays? That doesn't make sense. I need it on Mondays. So I had been drinking every day when I signed for probation. I swear I went there hungover and told her I had been clean for whatever amount of time. That was a load of crap. And I made it 2 weeks, and I was just losing my mind. I was just so aware that I was living on borrowed time, and that ultimately I was going to disappoint everybody, even though I didn't want to. I just could not manage life, because you take away drugs and alcohol, I'm still me. I still don't know how to function in society. My social skills are shit, and all I think about is myself. I cannot get away from myself, and it's so lonely because all I can hear is the voice in my head. Even though I want to hear you and I want to care about you, I don't have it. I am literally incapable of hearing you or absorbing anything but my own brain. Anyways, so I had a friend who I had known from before, and he came to this meeting here. And he came and visited me, and he was the epitome of attraction. He was excited about recovery. He was telling me, that he was free. He didn't want to get high anymore. And I'm sitting there, how? And he told me it was AA. And I thought, well, I'd been to AA, and it was never like that. And thank God for Solution Group, because he got me in touch with a woman, and at this point I was desperate enough and aware of my own limitations for the first time, because before this I had no limitations. I could do it my way. That idea of take what you want and leave the rest, that doesn't work here. You don't have to agree with my thoughts, but you have to do it the way the book says. You don't have to like me, and you don't have to agree with how I interpret it, right? But you have to do what the book says if you want the results. But the great thing that I loved was when it came to the idea of God. At the beginning, I was raised in West Texas I was raised Baptist. And as a child, I had this understanding and connection with God. I would literally go home and talk to God. And I was neurotic. I was just wrong from the beginning. But, I would spend hours analyzing with God my behavior through the day. And somewhere maybe along 3rd or 4th grade, I don't know, When things started to get crazy in my house is when things with me and God started to shift. And anyway, so the idea of God was also centered around purity for me. So I loved in Alcoholics Anonymous, this is a God of your understanding and not some phony weird stuff like a doorknob. It can't be a doorknob. But, you know, I heard someone say, and when I think back, this was probably my first idea of God was love. If I believe in love, then I can believe that love is powerful and go from there, you know. And the thing that I loved when I came here was that someone said, you're not going to have to fight every day. That's not what my life looks like. You know, I'm not saying, man, it was a hard one, but I didn't get high today. You know, that sucks. I have a lot more to offer the world, and I'm here for a purpose. If I'm still battling staying sober, I'm no good to anybody. You know, that's a lot of energy of something that I have no control over. And that's what step 1 is about. I don't have control. If I had control over it, I wouldn't be here. You know, I wouldn't be hanging out with you guys. But I love that it's, you know, it was impressed on me from the beginning that you don't have to believe anything. And guess what? Even if you don't believe, it's still going to work. If you do the work, you will get the results. And that's how it was sold to me. And that's been my experience, you know. I worked the steps the first time in maybe September of 2015. And I got my first sponsee at 90 days. And that's what's continued to keep it fresh. Because over time, my alcoholic brain, if I'm not involved with you guys and involved with sponsoring women, it's really easy to forget that God is in charge of all of this. You know, that God is what gave me this, and how I continue to get it is by sharing that with other people. That's my purpose on the world, you know, and to be a good mom now, you know, which I fail at both frequently. But, I mean, if I could impress anything upon y'all is just give it a chance if you're there. But your story does not have to look, and I think that's so important, because I see some of y'all, I was 23 when I got sober, and if I hadn't found this room, if I had been stuck with other, and it's not to bash into it, it's just different cultures. If I had been stuck in other groups where I had to win someone's approval to sponsor them, that's horse crap. You know, I mean, that's not what this was about for me, and I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful that a woman didn't know me, didn't make me have to do 50 assignments before she gave me the time of day, didn't make me feel this big, didn't constantly remind me that I was so young, you know. And I mean, that's how we kill people. That is how we kill people, is we look at someone and say, you're really young, or you just don't look screwed up enough. You know, I have a friend, she's got tattoos everywhere, right? But that girl's never been arrested. You wouldn't look at me and think that I have any kind of criminal background, thank God. You know, people are like, oh, I wouldn't look at you and think that. I mean, I hope after 7 years I don't look like a junkie, but, you know, I think that it's so vitally important, you know, that we treat people well, and that to be a member of this group does not mean that you had to suffer for 30 years. Suffering is suffering, you know? Just don't let it be wasted. You know, I think of the amount of time I suffered that was wasted. I didn't learn anything from it. I didn't grow from it. I didn't connect to God with it. None of it, you know? But now, today, I still suffer, but it's not wasted suffering. Pain is useful, and it allows me to grow closer to God and see my purpose in the world. But you know, y'all have suffered. You're here. You've suffered. And it's just a question of when enough is enough. And that's for us to decide. You know, when have I suffered enough? And that's still true today. You know, because when I get further from God and my character defects show up and I wreak havoc in my life, but I don't use today. You know who gives a heck about that? You know, if I told my partner, honey, I was a complete B word today, but I have not seen the dope man in 7 years. You know who would hear? You know what my boss would say if I said, but listen, I stayed sober today. You know? But anyways, that's the whole point, is once you've worked a program, that the sober part is in God's hands. You know, the being a decent human is in your hands, you know, showing up to work, showing up to your obligations, being a good person as much as you can. But that's all a byproduct of working the program. That's what's so cool about it. You don't have to try, and I think that's important too, because we can focus on, I want to work to be good, and it says it in the book. We can wish to be good, we can wish to be philosophically comforted, but the needed power wasn't there. You know, I am not good. It's not that I'm not that I'm a horrible piece of crap, but like naturally, I love Riana. You know, so if I don't connect to God, my world is going to revolve around Riana again, and that's really lonely. You know, I've been there. It sucks. How much time do I have? Yeah, I mean, if you're new, if you haven't worked the steps, and you think you know the program based on a bad experience, read the book. There's sick people everywhere. Read the book and get a sponsor and give yourself a chance. Don't listen to what anyone else, if you don't like somebody, you're allowed to. They don't represent AA, including myself, you know. But read the book and give yourself a chance. You know, none of us are gurus here. But I can read and I can work the steps with you and get you connected to God. And the rest of it is so much easier. Once God removed that obsession from me, the rest of it was easy. And at the beginning, like I said, my belief was more about love. And like a TV dad, which I saw as Bill Cosby until Bill Cosby, you know, kind of went down the toilet. My God in the sky cannot be Bill Cosby anymore. It's got to be somebody else. But I really did think of God as like the perfect dad, like a TV dad, like Bill Cosby, but not Bill Cosby. I was like, you know. I don't want to lose topics here. So let's let somebody else share. I know it's short, but it was so good. So.